Hey everyone, I'm Ava, and let's talk about Pokemon. So today I'm going to talk about collecting on a budget in 2021. It can be pretty hard to do since cards have gotten a lot more expensive. However, despite this year I've been able to grow my collection a lot and still been able to pay prices I want to pay for the cards that I want. And I'm just going to give you a few tips on how to do this. It was originally supposed to be 10, but I think this might take a little while, so we'll see. It might be 5. You'll be able to tell by whatever the video is titled. So the first one is pretty obvious. It's just to set a budget. This is something I'm personally still working on and struggle with quite a bit, especially following said budget that I set. We all love Pokemon cards, but at the end of the day, it is just a hobby and they are just shiny pieces of paper. You just want to make sure that you have enough money to meet all your expenses and also to save and invest some. If you don't have a Roth IRA, I highly recommend opening one because I don't think trading cards should be your only form of investment, even if you consider it to be one. But that's still, even if you consider it to be one. Now, everyone's budget may be different. Yours might be $50 a month, $500, $5,000. It really depends on the individual, and I don't think that your budget should restrain you from collecting Pokemon. Anyone can collect Pokemon. You don't even have to spend a lot of money, especially if you're interested in trading cards. Yeah, so since my budget is $1,000 a month, I might not hit that every single month, especially if I'm busy with work or school. And in that case, I'll carry over half of whatever I didn't spend to the next month so that I'm not encouraging myself to spend as much as I can. So I'm not encouraging myself to spend up to my budget every single month. So if I don't spend any money on cards in the month of July, then this month I can spend $1,500 because 1,000 divided by 2 is 500, and you add that to my current budget of 1,000. And that way I'm still able to save some money for bigger purchases and not incentivize myself to just spend all the money I can. My second tip is to prioritize the cards you're trying to get. So personally, I love to scroll on eBay while I'm working or doing homework as a break, but that means that I'll often find things that I think are good deals, but aren't actually things that I was looking for or necessarily want to collect for my own collection. You have to be really mindful of what you're buying because you genuinely want it and you genuinely love it, or because you think it's a good deal, or because it's been really hyped up. Like, do you really need all those random fossil hollows? Personally, I don't like having those in my collection. I never buy them unless it's a specific Pokemon that I really like. But right now, a lot of people are just buying anything that's Wizards of the Coast, and I really don't agree with this practice personally. For an example, for my personal collection, my number one goal is to get a master set of every Entei because he's my favorite Pokemon, and you will always see different printings of him in my background. He's probably got like 8 on display back there. He's just my favorite Pokemon, and I find that this is like a really manageable goal for me. They aren't the only cards I buy, but it's something that kind of puts a structure around everything I buy because that's my number one priority over time to get that. So I want to make sure there's enough left in my budget that I can work toward that every month and hopefully get a new card every single month. That doesn't always happen. For example, I was looking for a first edition Neo Revelation Entei, and that actually took me months to get. Aside from Entei, a few other cards I've had on my to-buy list are the Korokoro Mew, the first edition Neo Genesis Lugia. I have the Unlimited, but I feel like whenever I get the Unlimited of a Wizards of the Coast card, I remember there's a first edition and I really start to want it. And you'll actually see that on my Instagram page that I just got that. And I actually have it back there, and I actually got 2 of them, so that affected my budget slightly. But going forward, I'll make sure to only buy 1 per really expensive card. That way I can have a variety of cards. Yeah, I also wanted both of the Southern Islands Mews. Those 2 cards I think are really great. I really love the promo reverse hollows of the Wizards of the Coast. I think all of those cards look really good. Those 2 are actually both back there. And so you can see I've made progress on my list. I've tried to be fairly diligent. Not perfect, but doing my best. Once you have your list, I'd really recommend checking eBay and TCG Player regularly. This way, you can make sure you catch any deals, and you'll get a better understanding of what a deal actually looks like. There have been a lot of times where I thought, oh wow, that's a great deal for that card, or that's so overpriced, and I realized that the opposite is true. It might be a terrible deal, or it could actually be a really good deal for any given card. And when you have a good understanding of how much a card costs, it's really easy to get a good deal. But if you don't do your research, you're really likely to overpay, especially right now. You might also want to just hold off for some of those more expensive cards if you think they're going to go down a bit more, because I think a lot of cards right now are still going to go down more, or at the very least, they're not going to go up for a long time. I might be totally wrong though. This is just my personal opinion and what I think, so take this all with a grain of salt. I am no professional, I am just a hobbyist, and this is just something I love to do in my free time. So number 3 goes hand in hand, which is to write it down. So write down the cards you want and write down your budget, and this way you can make sure that you're following that and not forgetting it, because I will often think of all the cards I really want and then forget that and see something that I like but wasn't on my list, and I will just forget all of those cards and go buy that. It's okay to buy a new card without, planning ahead for it, but I really recommend at least having the list so you can compare it to that and say, do I really want this card more than these other cards on my list? If the answer is yes, then go ahead and buy it if it's within your budget. But if it's not, maybe rethink it, or maybe put it on the list but lower down. I love making spreadsheets, so I have various Excel spreadsheets for all my cards, all my sealed products that I have, cards that I want to get, the prices that I want to pay for them. If you guys want, I could actually make a template for you. Comment below if you want me to make an Excel template or a Google Docs template for collecting your cards. I'd be more than happy to do that because it's something I love to do anyway. But that's just an aside. My 4th one is being aware of FOMO. So this is kind of with staying within the budget. It's really easy to give into FOMO and just buy a card because you think there won't be another opportunity or because you think it's a good price. But chances are there will be, especially if the card you're collecting is, widely printed or more popular card. There are very few cards that I can think of where you wouldn't be able to find another one, especially if you're somebody who's mindful of a budget. You're probably not buying $50,000 cards that are extremely rare. Even for first edition cards, you can still find numerous listings on eBay or TCG Player at any given time for pretty much any card. This is something that I was reminded of recently, actually, when I was buying my first edition Neo Revelation Entei. I'd been looking for that card for months. I really wanted a near mint copy, and I kept entering these eBay auctions and bidding more than I would like to, but I just kept getting sniped out of the auction at the last second, and honestly it's probably for the best because I was recently able to get it from a buy it now listing for only about $220, and I was gonna pay, $100 more than that in that eBay auction, and it really reminded me that I don't need to get so trigger happy and that I don't need to get this card today because it'll be around later and it might actually be cheaper later, especially right now because cards are still so expensive. I'm really hoping that they'll go down more so I can buy more cards, but we'll see with that one. I'd also recommend avoid scrolling on eBay if possible because it will help you avoid all that temptation. Also, when you're able to get a good deal because you aren't paying so much and you've looked around, it's kind of more satisfying because you know that you've got this amazing card and you didn't overpay for it, and it leaves you with more room in your budget to buy other cards. So I think it's a win-win. It's much more satisfying for me personally to get like a really good find. Like if I'm at a local store and I'm able to get a really good card, that's much more exciting to me. My 5th tip is to trade for cards whenever possible. Obviously the T in TCG is for trading, but nowadays I see so few people trading. It's hard to blame them since with COVID it's not easy to do so in person, but you can still do it online if you're careful and smart. You can do it on Instagram or that type of thing, and I find it to be really fun and a good way to build community. I've done it on my page a few times. Just be mindful of who you're trading with and whether or not it's fair for both sides. I always recommend getting a deal, but when it comes to trading, I don't think that really applies because it's a person-to-person interaction, and I think you want both people to leave happy, and it's a way to make friends in the community, and you're not going to do that if you're trying to scam people or like nickel and dime them. So as long as it's about the same for both parties and both people leave happy, I think that's a good trade. And you've potentially gained someone you can trade with again. So don't alienate people, and be nice if you're going to trade. Another great part of this is that you can kind of thin your collection and get rid of cards you don't love and replace them with cards you do without having to spend any money. And you might find cards that you wouldn't be able to find super easily otherwise. For example, I traded for a Japanese VS Series Entei that I wouldn't have been able to get very easily in person unless I went on eBay, but I was really happy to be able to trade for it. And that was actually one of my first few trades on Instagram, so I was very happy with that. When I was a kid, I loved trading. That's kind of what got me into the hobby. Yu-Gi-Oh as well. I actually liked Yu-Gi-Oh first, and one of my earliest memories is playing Yu-Gi-Oh with my brother and trading cards with them. And of course, during summer camp, we'd always trade cards on the playground, and I have just so many fond memories of that. And when I do that, it really brings it back to what made me fall in love with trading cards in the first place. And I feel like a lot of people have a similar experience. I don't think I'm alone in this regard. So give trading a try and see if it kind of sparks that joy in you for the hobby again. I think it's a really good way to kind of give new life to your hobby, especially if it's not something you do regularly, because it adds a whole nother dimension to it, and it makes it much more social, and it makes it much more of the like collectible card game where other people are enjoying it rather than just seeing all these pictures online. I'm guilty of this myself, but I'm trying to do better and trade more. I think I'm going to make this into 2 parts just because I'm terrible at editing, and this will take me long enough as it is, but this was really fun for me to make actually. Thank you guys for listening to me ramble. If you liked this, please subscribe and give a like to this video, and keep an eye out for any other videos I make.